On a different note, are Labour going to raise your taxes again?
We will not raise tax on working people. No tax rises for income tax, for national insurance, for VAT. We will not raise income tax. We will not raise national insurance. We will not raise VAT.
Labour has no plans to increase taxes on working people.
Well, that promise didn't last long, did it? We've already seen 40 billion in tax rises, employer national insurance hikes, VAT on private school fees, inheritance tax changes on agricultural land, all while cutting winter fuel allowance and watching migrant spending spiral to a projected 15 billion. And now we've got a leaked memo from Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, written directly to her Chancellor, the latest power play, some are calling it, in a bid to oust Keir Starmer. The Chancellor didn't take Rayner's advice on board, but if this is the Deputy Prime Minister's idea of economic management, then brace yourselves. Because here is what Rayner wants. A tax raid on savers, freezing the additional rate of income tax thresholds, scrapping the £500 tax-free dividend allowance, reinstating the pensions lifetime allowance. Yeah, that's just some of them there. This isn't a crackdown on oligarchs or bankers, though, is it? It's going after pensioners, savers and middle-income families, people who have done the right thing, worked hard, put money aside. Now it looks like Labour might want more from them. And why? Because the government borrowed a staggering 150 billion this year, the third highest borrowing in modern British history. They're now desperately trying to plug their own black hole.
No, this is important. Mark my words. Labour will raise your taxes. It's in their DNA. Your work, your car, your pension.
Thank you. OK,
you name it, Labour will tax it.
Well, he was right, wasn't he? It is in their DNA. Meanwhile, Starmer is now facing a humiliating U-turn on the winter fuel allowance after allegedly facing down his Chancellor over the political cost of it. Personally, and maybe some of you at home will, I think it's a little bit too little too late. But more importantly, how will they now justify the extra spend? This is a party clearly in open conflict, running around like headless chicken while our economy breaks. You've got Rayner, the darling of the Labour left, demanding higher taxes and more state control. You've got Reeves, who's already under fire for multiple tax grabs, trying to desperately hold on to our Iron Chancellor title. And then there's Starmer, standing in the middle, desperately pretending he's in charge, while the cabinet around him mutters that he can't even run a bath. Remember that? Yes, that's a quote allegedly from Angela Rayner herself. She hasn't denied it, by the way. And don't forget, Rayner has a record here. She's already defied Starmer on Trident, on housing, and threatened to quit over his unrealistic home building targets. Targets she privately called undeliverable. And guess who it took a call from to get her to back down? Good old Tony Blair. Yeah, he's still kicking around. That's how fragile this cabinet is. And with a YouGov poll now showing the Prime Minister with a 14% approval rating, the second lowest of any Prime Minister on record, is Angela Rayner sharpening the knives. But let's get the thoughts of my panel. I am joined today by Mark Littlewood, Christian Calgie and Nina Mishkov. Everybody, what a big day for politics. Sometimes when you get those massive majorities, major problems follow it. And of course, this Labour Party has brought in quite a lot of what many people would call a hard left on the Labour Party, people who want more taxation, and others who, of course, on the more centrist side, maybe the Starmer and Reeves side, who want a more moderate tax approach. Mark, are they in for a big civil war?
Yeah, because they basically can't square the circle here, Alex, right? Here is the problem, as you just said in your intro there. We're still borrowing £150 billion a year. No government of any stripe has managed to balance the budget since 2001. So we've now had a quarter of a century of the government spending more than we're bringing in tax. There's a number of ways you can solve this. The first is to cut spending. Well, the Labour government have got no appetite for that. Even on the paltry amount of the winter fuel allowance that would have saved, they're U-turning on that. The second is you could raise taxes. However, here's the problem. we are probably now taxing the economy to the maximum.
Yeah.
If you increase taxes further, you are likely to decrease economic activity. We're already seeing millionaires fleeing the country. So if you keep dialing up the tax, you'll find that people retire early, leave, don't work as hard and the rest of it. Or the third, which I thought was what we were told this Labour government was all about, our number one priority is growth. We are going to be laser focused on growth. I think I'm quoting the Prime Minister and the Chancellor there. No sign of that now.
Yeah.
I mean, the economy is flatlining. So if you can get growth going...
Excuse me, they announced growth rates this week, and we are the fastest growing.
It's tiny.
0.6%.
Only because all the other economies are even worse.
Yeah, I appreciate
that.
we have grown,
Even
but
so.
it's measly, though, isn't it, Nina?
It's gone up.
Working people will be saying 0.6% is not worth
If
celebrating.
you want to be laser focused on growth, you have to be very relaxed about rich people getting richer, people paying themselves bigger dividends from companies they've set up, all of the things that Angela Rayner's secret memo is against.
OK, Calgie, sorry, Christian, I didn't call you Calgie.
No, you
Everybody calls him Calgie.
I know, that's just your nickname, isn't it? Listen, Keir Starmer's U-turn now on winter fuel allowances is quite a big deal. There was ums and ahs, maybe yes, maybe he will, maybe he wouldn't. He's obviously done a little bit of it. It's not a full U-turn. Do you think this is a symptomatic problem with the Labour cabinet, is they all have different ideas? Because what many of us heard was that Rachel Reeves was the one pushing for the winter fuel allowance cuts. So is he now at odds with his own Chancellor?
Well, I don't think Keir Starmer really has a view on the economy. That's the problem. In fact, Keir Starmer doesn't have views on many things. He spent 5 years as leader of the opposition defining him against what the Tories were doing, and now the Tories are gone, and he's sort of like a Catherine Will that's come off the stick. He's spinning around furiously and doesn't know what he's doing. The problem for Labour is, and the thing that stands out to me is just the sheer lack of a plan, and the fact. I don't blame them for it because I get people were sick of the Tories, but the fact so many people... They persuaded lots of people that they had a plan for the economy. No, they didn't. They just kept on talking about stability. The problem with that plan was that, for all his faults, Rishi Sunak had returned the country to stability. He'd got inflation down to 2%. That's why today we keep seeing them talk about Liz Truss, because they want us to forget the inheritance they actually got was, 2% inflation. The Bank of England was on course to cut interest rates before Labour got into power. And now they've got themselves into this massive mess, confined by completely made-up so-called fiscal rules by Rachel Reeves, because we've got such a jittery financial market. But there's another point, and the problem with the winter fuel U-turn, it's not just the fact that I've no doubt in my mind that potentially thousands of old people will have died this winter as a result of that.
But we don't have any figures for that.
Well, we know what the excess deaths were. We just need a few more data points to come out so we can compare to previous years.
But there are no figures. It's completely independent.
OK, I'll come back on the show and apologise if I'm wrong. But I'll just make my final point. The problem isn't that. The problem isn't the U-turn. The problem is, as Kemi Badenoch said at PMQs, Starmer got 350 Labour MPs to go over the top, to vote for this, to go on the doorstep and defend it, and now he's left them, he's broken the wicket, as Margaret Thatcher was accused of doing when they went out to battle.
Nina, just to bring you in here, because look, I think this memo, clearly many people who are journalists or in the trade would have probably said, this has come from Angela Rayner's team. She is basically putting her manifesto for the economy out there to the public. Starmer is looking exceptionally weaker. As Christian just mentioned there, of course, he forced all of his Labour MPs to vote for the winter fuel allowance and other benefits cuts. Now he's softening on them. Are we looking here at a potential challenger to the Prime Minister in the short term?
I don't really think so. That memo was written in March. It's been leaked now and leaked to the Telegraph. Unless it's a very clever doublethink, I can't imagine that anybody Labour would leak to the Telegraph, for heaven's sake. Unless, as I say, it's clever thinking that, well, they won't think of that. This is a kind of an indication of the two sides. Now, Starmer, whether you like him or not, and most people don't like him, obviously. As I said here before, people think that he's a kind of idiot because he has this, terrible voice, he's wooden delivery, has got complete lack of charisma. But in fact, I've always thought, and you will probably know better than me, that he's a completely ruthless I was going to say bastard, but of course I can't say that. But he's
Well, you said it now.
So I have to apologise on your behalf then.
Sorry about that. Yeah, but
Thank you.
that's the phrase that sprang to mind. The thing is, when he was voted leader, Labour were completely unelectable. We'd just gone through the Jeremy Corbyn thing.
Yeah.
And he has managed to defeat that left. He brought Angela Rayner in as a token to the left as his deputy, like Blair had with Prescott, OK? So he's still in charge. He's still managing to keep them under wraps. And I think that he'll remain in his place until he becomes so unpopular, and they'll replace him with West Streeting.
Here is the colossal problem this government has run into, which so many previous governments of either stripe have. They have made this winter fuel allowance. They said it's unpopular, but it's absolutely fundamentally necessary to balance the books. We're going to suck up the pain. We're going to suck up the unpopularity. This is vital in the interests of stabilising the economy. Now they've U-turned. And the problem here is any future difficult announcement about the economy, we're going to cut this, we're going to do that,
further welfare cuts,
will immediately beg the question, how many by-elections or council seats do you need to lose, or how much lower do you need to sink in the opinion polls before this economic policy is on the scrapping?
Well, this is the problem with U-turning, isn't it? Let me ask you this.
The Grand Old Duke of York, he's marched his troops more than halfway down the hill, up the hill, and now halfway down.
Let me ask you this, because we showed the clips there at the start there of the election manifesto promises. Did Labour mislead the public on taxation?
Yes, it seems to me evident that they have put taxes up on working people. There is no other way to describe what they have actually done. Taxes have gone up on working people. They said they wouldn't go up.
Nina, did Labour mislead the public on taxation?
In a way, but only in name, because they haven't put income tax up. That's the whole point.
They
did it by the back door.
Okay.
But so therefore, technically, they haven't lied because they haven't put the tax.
Obviously, the OBR stated that both the Conservatives and Labour were lying about their manifesto pledges. Is that true, Christian?
Oh, of course. Yes, there was no money left, right? And both, but neither parties wanted to.
No money left.
Neither party's been honest about that.
I think that's one. We've got to move on, unfortunately. I think that's one consensus we can find tonight. Politicians do make things up every now and then, don't they?
Be honest.
There we go.
They're politicians.
Well, that's correct, isn't it?